In the first age, as the Atanatari passed through the Middlelands, traveling west across the Blue Mountains into Beleriand, some chose to stay behind, establishing settlements along the way. Those that would continue on their journey west would become known as the Edain and would ally themselves with the elves in the wars against Morgoth, resulting in the Valar gifting them long life and granting them the island of Numenor after the destruction of Beleriand in the War of Wrath. For many years, the Númenóreans would thrive until falling to the influence of the Dark Lord Sauron and sailing west to wage war against the Valar of Aman. This resulted in the destruction of the island and loss of most of their people, save for a few who had remained faithful to Eru Ilúvatar and had not participated in the campaign against the Valar. These survivors would become known as the Dúnedain, establishing the kingdoms of Gondor and Arnor in the Third Age. Meanwhile, their kin who stayed east of the Blue Mountains during the First Age had not participated in the wars of the West, and so had shorter lifespans, and came to be known as Middlemen or Men of Twilight by the Númenóreans of the Second Age. Recognizing a kinship between them, the Númenóreans and most Middlemen established friendly relations and trade. However, such was not the case with the hostile and warlike men of Enedwaith and Minhirith in southern Eriador, for while most Middlemen descended from the houses of Beor and Marak, these people were related to the House of Haleth and spoke a language not recognized by the men of Numenor, and so despite their ancestry, they were not considered to be among the kin of the Edain, leading to hostile relations between them for thousands of years. Early on in the Third Age, the Middlemen who resided in northern Rhovanion came to be known as Northmen or Freemen of the North, establishing a number of settlements including the Kingdom of Rhovanion, which rose to become the most prominent and important nation of the Northmen. They also continued the tradition of friendship and alliance with Gondor, even fighting alongside them in the wars against the Easterlings of Rhûn, who were a constant threat to Rhovanion and the West. In the year 1248 of the Third Age, after a great victory against the Easterlings, pushing them back beyond even the Sea of Rhûn, Gondor and Rhovanion agreed to draw the border at the Anduin River, granting all eastern lands to the Northmen. Yet centuries later, after a great plague devastated the north, the Easterling tribes returned, united as a confederation known as Wainriders, waging a terrible war of conquest against the Kingdom of Rhovanion, destroying their nation and enslaving their people. Eventually, with the help of Gondor, the Northmen rebelled and pushed the Easterlings back, but the kingdom was gone and their population drastically reduced. Some of the Northmen who survived the wars would come to inhabit the lands of Dale and Laketown, while others followed their leader Marwini south to the Vales of Anduin, between the Gladden Fields and Mirkwood. This faction would come to be known as the Eotheod, meaning horse people, famed for their mounted warriors. Years later, after the fall of Angmar and defeat of the Witch King, chieftain Frumgar of the Eotheod moved his people north to inhabit the lands near to the Grey Mountains, where they established the settlement of Framsburg as their capital, named for Frumgar's legendary son, Fram, who would earn renown for slaying the dragon Skatha, which plagued the Grey Mountains. And while the spoils of victory were plentiful, with Fram claiming the treasure the dragon guarded, this action also earned the hatred of the dwarves, whose possessions had been stolen by Skatha and therefore wanted them returned. But Fram instead only sent a necklace made up of the teeth of Skatha and a letter they took as an insult. This would lead to centuries of hatred between the dwarves and Eotheod. Generations later, the lordship of their people fell to Eorl, son of Leod. During his reign, they were visited by a messenger of Gondor, representing Kidion, steward of Gondor, and bearing the red arrow as a call for aid against the eastern invaders. Eorl recognized that if Gondor fell, all of the west would be threatened, and so led his armies south to defend the plains of Kalanardan, a large, sparsely populated territory within the realm. These lands south of the Misty Mountains were being invaded by a group of Easterlings, known as the Balkoth, who had nearly succeeded in defeating the armies of Gondor until Eorl the Young and his Eotheod warriors arrived, beating back the eastern invaders and scattering their forces at the battle on the field of Celebrant. As a reward for their assistance in defeating the Balkoth, Kidion granted the Eotheod the territory of Kalanardon, allowing them to migrate their people south and settle in these prosperous lands. Eorl was so grateful to Gondor for their generosity, he pledged eternal friendship with Gondor, vowing to fight at their side should they ever need assistance. Kidion did the same, establishing an important alliance between them that would use the Red Arrow as a means of summoning the Rohirrim to the defense of Gondor. Gondor would then come to call these lands Rohan and its people the Rohirrim, while the descendants of Eorl and the Eotheod referred to themselves as Eorlingas of the Riddermark. The people of Rohan were known known to speak Rohirric, a language similar to Aduniac, the language of the Edain. The hobbits of the Shire also shared some language similarities with Rohirric, since they once lived near the Anduin, close to the ancestors of the Rohirrim, and so influenced each other's cultures and language, with even the term hobbit derived from the Rohirric Holbitla, meaning hole builder. Important areas within the borders of Rohan would come to include their capital of Edoras and the city of Aldburg, the Gap of Rohan separating the Misty Mountains from the White Mountains, the refuge of Dunharrow, the fortress of the Hornburg, and the larger area of Helm's Deep in the White Mountains. A special thanks to all those who contribute to Civilization X, like Oren Bao, the Ice Eye, Mevel, Andorra Farsight, and Zack of All Trades Trials of the Snowy Sword Brotherhood. You all make these videos possible, and I am eternally grateful for your support. If you would like to help Civilization X and gain early access to videos, access to the Patreon-only series Heroes of Lore and Legend, and vote on future content to be produced, you can click on the Patreon link in the description box below and pledge any amount you'd like on a monthly basis. Or if you'd prefer to make a single donation, you can use the PayPal link also in the description below. And please be sure to like and subscribe and click on the links to see more.